I don't mean this entirely tongue-in-cheek, but is this additive stuff really for real? It took years and years to develop the fuel nozzle, a very early additive success to be sure. There are real challenges in getting a sophisticated part into repetitive production through an additive process. So talk about that. Is it true that the people who've invested and come into this conference are investing their time wisely because this really is headed toward mainstream production?
So, look, I'm a pretty passionate guy about additive, so you're going to get a colored response from me, but I think it's a fair statement to say that I really struggle sometimes to think of an industry that makes something that isn't somehow using additive. And if they're not, maybe there's something out there, but you look at all the different modalities, all the different materials, and all the different application points, and it's hard to ignore it. I mean, it's really hard to suggest that additive is not going to be something that is a major disruptive technology to at least consider in some of people's manufacturing processes or industries. I pick GE and I say, why is GE a litmus test maybe for what others will see? It's because GE is a multinational, very large corporation. It's a giant industrial company. It gets involved in a lot of different products. Again, from aircraft engines to train engines, if you will, locomotives, to healthcare devices, making CT scanners, oil and gas, you name it. So GE has a very broad industrial base in which it serves. Again, if we are an indication, the proof points we see internally, we can clearly identify $3 to $5 billion of cost out over the next 10 years. That's a pretty big number, even for a GE. That gets the attention of a lot of people. So I look at that and I say, that's great. So from the cost out standpoint, I look and say additive is fundamentally making us think about our products differently. So just like the ATP, the advanced turboprop engine, will be 35% printed components. That's a fundamental shift in how our engineers and designers are thinking. When we can take 300 disparate pieces that make up a component of an ATP engine, and we can now consolidate that and make one part, you're thinking on levels that you haven't thought about before. So I get very passionate about the fact that I think it's a technology that may not be deeply applicable to every industry or to every company, but I think you ignore it at your peril. And I've seen too many examples of companies who haven't realized the gravity of it, and they find their competitors have been able to leverage the technology in ways they just didn't think about. So,
if you'll stay with me, I'd like to ask some other succeeding users to come back to the stage.
I think you guys come from a little bit different areas. Obviously, we have John Deere, we have Smith & Nephew, BJ Specialty, and Tangible, and you guys have a different background. So I made a bold statement from a GE lens, and GE is, again, a different company than the four of you guys. I'd just like to know each of your thoughts. Is Greg out there drinking some kind of Kool-Aid that you haven't had yet, or am I hitting the target, do you think? I mean, what in your world, how do you view it in your world? Do you see it being as significant as what I was just kind of saying, or do you think that I'm overblowing it, or do you think I'm underestimating it? We just go down the line.
Sure, so I can take that. Yeah, I think it is going to be a game changer. It may just be a little bit delayed from the cost curve of what the aerospace will be. I think you probably have similar size, maybe not as large as structure-wise, but maybe that isn't an application that goes forth. But yeah, have we put a number to it? To put a number out there, not totally sure, but it'll change the game.
Yes, so I think that we're not anywhere close to even seeing additive take over subtractive. I think today you need the right application to take advantage of what additive can bring to the table, and honestly to tolerate the higher costs that come along with it, particularly with metal and all the post-processing and things like that come along with it. So it's a matter of finding the right application in your field, in my opinion. I think a lot of people that might know just a little bit about additive think we're going to start making everything, we're just going to print everything, and it's not feasible, and I don't see that being feasible for most things for a very long time.
I definitely agree with all of those statements. I view additive in the molding environment as just another tool for your arsenal of how you can manufacture. We have all discussed, finding the niche, finding that perfect place for it. But if you, have an open mind from a designer standpoint, you're much easier going to be able to apply it to your line of work, whether that's in the molding, medical, aerospace. There's additive can be used for about anything if you apply it correctly, and I think that's why a lot of us are so excited for where additive can go in the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a replacement of how we typically manufacture things. It's just going to aid us to make that next step.
Well, I've had 2 glasses of Kool-Aid, and I'll probably have a third before I leave today. I think it's, I've staked a lot on it, and my business partners and I and our investors and our board and where we're going and what we're doing. I think what's really interesting that I watch is the maturity of the industry, not necessarily of the technology itself, but of companies, of processes, of delivery. Within additive, we're starting to see subcomponents and focused groups of companies focusing in on target markets, target products. We started out with 2 printers in a garage, and now today we virtually only do 90% of our business is titanium implants. We call ourselves a contract manufacturer of spinal implants, and that's our focus. There are other companies out there that do aerospace really, really well. I think as you start to see that proliferate, you start to see those 4 to 12th graders start to enter into the workforce and see more of the technology being used, it's going to accelerate at an exponential rate that will be difficult to keep up with. And I think it's really important that us as a whole, as an industry, come together and prepare for it so we can make it a $76 billion industry, because it certainly can be.